W5FC. When is Skynet?
I don't know.
Does Charlie know?
Always 9 p.m. Saturday on 146.88. Duh.
This is Kilo India 5, Mike Delta India. Testing transmission at 25 watts.
Kilo India 5, Mike Mike Delta India, is that correct? And if so, you're just a little bit of static, but readable. Cat 5, GH.
Well, thank you for that, and I'm going to go back up to the 50 watts I was using.
All right, standing by for the net. Cat 5, GH.
KG5ZIX, what's going on with the net tonight? I just turned it back on. My wife and I finally watched for the first time Pulp Fiction, and it just now got over. So what have we been missing on the net?
Well, in 1 minute, Skynet is about to start, probably 30 seconds. So stay tuned. Cat 5, GH, standing by, monitoring.
To make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
And does anyone need to use the repeater before we do begin tonight's Skynet? This is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray. My name is Tom, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. considering the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime, daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation.
And you know how all this happens, like a call.
Is at 147.14 megahertz at 9 p.m. So Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater. Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington 147.14 megahertz repeater. That's again SN8. You'll find a bunch of people there that can really help you much better over there than on this net.
Astronomical Society. Will be held on January 22nd, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. with Stephen Tompkins being our speaker talking about binoculars. It'll be a virtual meeting, and past club members will receive an email link to the meeting about a week in advance. I have no idea when TAP will resume having face-to-face meetings or when TAP will resume having public listening sessions, but hopefully soon. You can check out their website, texasastro.org, for updated information and details. Back to you, KF5JHA.
Not a lot, Tom. This is Inside BB. I am the membership director of the Grand Texas chapter of the National Space Society. Because of the pandemic, we're not doing anything in person right now, so things are pretty slow. So we do have a monthly meeting on WebEx. And the next meeting is tomorrow afternoon, Sunday afternoon, 4 p.m. Our speaker is going to be Amy Ross. She
light thing going here if you're watching on the video. And I'll tell you, what is nice thing, I had a lot of people here at the house. I couldn't do a regular full-blown preparation, so, but I was very much interested in watch the SN8 flight, which is the Starship. It's going to be a vehicle that's supposed to be able to take people to Mars, a bunch of them, and maybe a bunch to the moon. And it's kind of a science fiction-y type thing. It's got fins, it's got a bit of a car in the front, and the thing actually is used in order to actually fly to a destination. It's really very, I don't know if I recall that televised, if anybody remembers that. What I did was I pulled an article from CNN Business, and it was written by Jackie Waddle, and this is what she says about the mission. It says, SpaceX tested steel rocket prototype, an early iteration of the technology CEO Elon Musk hopes will be used to put humans on Mars. Order to the South Texas Thursday afternoon MIs and riskiest test flight of the vehicle yet. It wasn't as simple as a rocket shooting for the stars, however. Here's everything that happened, or at least what we could see. Starship SN8 has prototype is called flying through the air for nearly 5 minutes as it flew out over the Gulf of Mexico before steering itself back to the launch site, where SpaceX hoped it would take a pinpoint landing reminiscent of how the company lands its workhorse Falcon 9 rockets. The flight was intended to help as SpaceX collect data about how SN8 would re-enter the Earth's atmosphere after returning from an extraterrestrial mission and steer itself to a precise landing point. Starship SN8, however, did not survive this test in the final stretch of its Wednesday's flight. An issue with the fueling system caused the rocket to slam into the ground and erupt in a powerful explosion. Musk himself wrapped it up. The mission had to win. The fuel ladder tank pressure was low during the landing veer burn, causing the touchdown velocity to be too high and rapid RUD. But we got all the data we needed, Musk said in a tweet, and the RUD stands for Rapid Unscheduled Disassembly, or in layman's terms, a rocket explosion. The space's tech is known to embrace fiery mishaps during the rocket development process. The company maintains an attack system consistent with its initial way of gathering data, an approach that sets the company apart from its close partner NASA, which prefers slow, methodical testing over dramatic flare-ups. Wednesday's test flight went much better than he had expected after Musk gave the vehicle a 1 in 3 chance of surviving the test flight. But that's just oxygen, which inside the big rocket is kept so low that it remains liquid, while excess oxygen boils off the side when it touches the warm excess air. Because the spacecraft don't have atmospheric oxygen feeding their engines in outer space, rocket engines must carry their own oxygen on board to interact with fuel, giving the engines their fiery thrust. SpaceX Starship is powered by liquid oxygen, also known as LOX and methane. SpaceX opted for methane rather than the fuel known as RP-1 because the methane fuel can theoretically be produced on the moon or Mars. That makes the gas a wise choice for rockets destined for long-distance journeys into the solar system. When the countdown clock hit 0, SN8 fired up all 3 of its massive Raptor engines, each of which up to 6 times as much thrust as an engine on a 747, according to the SpaceX website. Less than 2 minutes into the flight, one of the 3 Raptor engines powered down. Thank God I saw that because SpaceX did not release a detailed flight plan for the test. It's not clear if everything functioned as intended, but Musk would suggest months later that the first leg of this flight has already gone exactly as planned. About a minute later, another of the 3 Raptor engines shut off, leaving 1 engine to power the rest of the SN8's climb. Nearly 5 minutes into the flight, the final Raptor engine stopped firing. SpaceX's goal was for the rocket to reach 40,000 feet or more, though it is unclear exactly how high control, or RCS, RCS system, which refers to self-thrusters mounted on the rocket's exterior, who still help guide the craft's aerobatics and may be seen firing near the top of the rocket. The SN8 did follow that motion almost exactly on Tuesday, shortly before touchdown. All three Raptor engines powered back on. The rocket reoriented and it approached its designated landing site with precision. But because of the last-minute issue with the pressure of the SN8 fuel tank, the landing did not go as slowly as intended. Apple green flames as a result of chemicals burning off into the engine flame were quickly engulfed by a giant plume of fire and smoke as the SN8 slammed into the ground. Now, I know everyone here has probably seen the Falcon 9 missions and what happens with them. And landing, this was something entirely different. It was very impressive. If you have not seen it, go see it. You've never seen anything like it before from any space flight you ever watch or even launch, whether it be a test mission or an actual flight into orbit and beyond. I've never seen anything like it. It was very impressive. And it says KE5ICS. I'm your net controller today on Skynet. So next up we have Chaz. Welcome back, Chaz. Missed you last week, but we're glad to have you here now. So the net is yours for KE5ICS. Okay, I'll go ahead and then would you hand it over to Chaz, please? Go ahead. Sorry. This is in fact I wanted to one of those critical details that might interest you about the problem that Starship had. If you can imagine this huge fuel tank and fuel and oxygen inside the spacecraft when it's launching, when it gets up to the altitude, it's depleted all that fuel essentially. So if they were going to land the thing, if they had done the normal thing, they had this tank which was nearly empty with only a little bit of fuel, and as it came down and keeps sloshing around, which would affect the stability, and they have to make sure at these weird angles that they rotated that they could get fuel to the engines. So in order to make that work, they would have to pressurize the tank, and they'd have to have some kind of bladder in there. It'd be really complex. So what they did is they put what they call a header tank for the oxygen and the fuel. And these header tanks are only used right at the landing because they're small, and so they're completely full when they go to land, and so they can easily work in the normal fashion. In order to make it weight distribution work correctly, they decided to put these header tanks up at the top of the rocket, opposite the engines. So evidently they had some problem with the fuel flow from those header tanks on the other end of the rocket going back to the engines in the rear. They couldn't get enough pressure back there quickly enough, and so when they tried to land, it tried very valiantly, but there just wasn't enough fuel pressure to provide enough thrust. So I thought that's a very interesting issue, though. They had to have these separate header tanks of the main fuel tanks being nearly empty, and you just can't keep the fuel coming out correctly when it's in this weird landing maneuver. That's all I got. Over to you, Chaz. This is it about PD. Thanks, Chaz.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Tom. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. My degree is in astrophysics, and I'm the astrophysics lab manager at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus. We call this segment of Skynet "Was Up." I do want to thank everyone out there for your thoughts and prayers. 2 weeks ago, I caught COVID-19, so last week I was sleeping through Skynet. That's the reason why I was not here. I was experiencing some moderate symptoms at that point, but I'm glad to be back. I just have a residual cough. I hope I can make it through my 2 segments tonight. Okay, slide number 2, Slide Master. The moon was at its 3rd quarter on December the 7th, so today's phase of the moon is a waning crescent. December the 14th, the moon will be new. And on December the 1st, the moon will be at 1st quarter on December 21st. The moon will be full on December 29th. Slide number 3, please. This afternoon, I didn't go out and look at it, but 3:40 p.m. Central Standard Time, there was a daytime occultation of Venus by the moon, very low in the southwestern sky. This is daytime. This is afternoon. The moon and Venus were only about 2 degrees above the horizon, so you would have needed to use binoculars or telescope to observe this. Was there anyone out there that actually observed this occultation? Come down with your call sign if you'd have. Well, I was hoping to do so, but I don't want to be out in the cold with my COVID. Slide number 4, December the 16th, the moon will be at just below Jupiter and Saturn in a conjunction. But the big event is just a few days away from that, and that would be on slide number 5. On December 20th and 21st, Mike had talked about this. Jupiter and Saturn will be so close together in the sky that they will appear as a single object to the unaided eye. I've had some questions about what you can see through a telescope on the nights of December 20th and 21st. If you're watching the video version of Skynet, you can see a zoomed-in image of Jupiter and Saturn and their moons. The image will vary from telescope to telescope, and how much you will see will be determined by the aperture, eyepiece, magnification, and field of view of the eyepiece. But on December 20th, you should be able to see at least all 4 Galilean moons. And the biggest moon of Saturn, Titan. Depending on your telescope, this image could be flipped upside down or flipped left or right or both. I hope that you can see my 25 binoculars because they're a quick setup. Slide number 6, please. On December 23rd, the moon and Mars will be in conjunction, with them high in the southern evening sky. December, there are 5 minor meteor showers and 1 major meteor shower. The major meteor shower is the Gemini. It often produces up to 150, maybe a little bit less than that, meteor showers. They will peak on tomorrow night, actually, on December 13th and 14th. I always suggest camping in a Texas state park to watch the meteors. For more details about meteors and meteor shower changes, visit the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org or the International Meteor Organization IMO.net. And this is Stand 5JJ, and this is Skynet. Meeting is going to be on January 22nd, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. It's a virtual one with Stephen Tompkins, and it's going to be talking about binoculars. For more information about the Texas Astronomical Society, go to texasastro.org. Slide number 9, please. If you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need to know any of this information, well, come down with your call sign. I don't have everything, but I may know the answer to your question.
Or actually a comment.
Oh, Mike, welcome back so much. Give me something, please.
Well, I haven't done a good question, but I will be going out to Boston Kingdom to observe the Geminis. It won't be tomorrow because tomorrow we're going to have rain. But this will be sunny Monday. And it'll be cold, but I'm bringing my sleeping bag. usually they expect still 120 meters a second. I doubt if it will be that big. Probably more like 60, but I'm hoping to go see it. And that's in the plan. So, I think it came back for Peter.
Thank you, Mike. Just a correction, it's not 120 meters per second, but 120 meters per hour. So there you go. But it's going to be a great view. I agree with you. It's probably the most consistent and high numbers meteor shower of the year. All right, so slide number 10, please. So as the moon is waning during the beginning of December, Susan, we're still seeing the Skynet. Stay safe, keep well. Yeah, boy, I could have used that. Great roll, and until next week, keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JJ, back to the control. Thank you, Tom.
Indeed, that's correct.
Been one of those weeks. All right, this is KF5JC. I'm set control for tonight. Skynet. I'll go ahead and ask you to say additional check-ins before we move on to our next segment. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come out with your call sign. Go ahead and play your name and where you're transmitting from.
Kilo Golf 5 Echo India Uniform. David, St. Paul, Texas. Kilo Bravo 9, Air Oscar Kilo, shot forward.
Thanks, Tom. This is Debbie. NASA has selected the Artemis team. We'll still be returning to the moon under the Artemis solar, but with a work on another world for the benefit of humanity. NASA has selected an initial team of NASA's astronauts, the Artemis team, to help pave the way for the next lunar missions, including sending the first woman and next man to walk on the lunar surface in 2024. And we're not doing this alone. The NASA partnerships are key to long-term exploration, and some of the astronauts will join the Artemis team later. Together we'll assign this incredible Artemis generation of space and lunar exploration that just sets the moon road prepares humanity for our next leap of Mars. Next up, the Starliner. NASA and Boeing are now targeting March 29th for the launch of Starliner's second uncrewed flight test to the International Space Station as part of the agency's Commercial Crew Program. Orbital Flight Test 2, OFT-2, is a critical development milestone on the company's path toward flying crew missions for NASA. For the OF-2 mission, the CST-100 Starliner spacecraft will launch on a United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket from Space Launch Complex 41 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida, dock to the International Space Station, and return to land in the western United States about a week later as part of an end-to-end test to prove the system is ready to fly crew. NASA's Human Exploration and Operations Mission Directorate. Our teams are focused on applying the lessons learned, and it won't be long until we see Starliner visiting its destination, the International Space Station. The OFT-2 Starliner spacecraft is nearing final assembly inside the company's commercial crew and cargo processing facility at NASA's Space Center in Florida. The vehicle's reusable crew module has been powered up, and final checkouts of the avionics, power, and propulsion systems are nearing completion. The spacecraft's parachutes, landing airbags, base heat shield, and its back shells are installed, signifying the completion of the vehicle build phase. In the coming weeks, teams will load the crew module with cargo, including Rosie the Rocketeer, and weigh the vehicle before mating it to its service module, which is already complete. In parallel, Boeing technicians continue to refurbish the crew module flown on Starliner's first orbital flight test, while also building a brand new service module for NASA's Boeing Crew Flight Test, CFT, which is now targeting launch in summer 2021, following a successful OFT-2 mission. NASA astronauts Barry Butch Wilmore, Mike Finke, I'm not sure, and Nicole Mann continue to train for CFT, the inaugural cruise flight of the Starliner spaceship. After the completion of both test flights, NASA astronauts Sunita Williams, Josh Cassidy, and Jeanette Epps will launch on the Starliner 1 mission, the first of 6 crew rotation missions NASA and Boeing will fly as part of the agency's Commercial Crew Program. Okay, astronaut birthdays. December 12th, 1951, was Stephen Hawley. He did 5 shuttle missions. December 7th, 1983, Rob Coolin. He trained as an astronaut but did not ever do any flights. Francisco Rubio, December 11th, 1975. He is still awaiting. He is on the Artemis team, though. Matthew Dominic, December 7th, 1981, is also on the Artemis team. And he's also awaiting assignment. Kenneth Ham, December 12th, 1964, did 2 shuttle missions. Another one on the Artemis team is Victor Glover, who's on the ISS right now. This week in space history, December 11th, 1972, Apollo 17 lands on the lunar surface. Apollo 17 was the final moon landing mission of NASA's Apollo program and remains the most recent time humans have traveled beyond low Earth orbit. Its crew consisted of Commander Eugene Cernan, lunar module pilot Harrison Schmitt, and command module pilot Ronald Evans, and it carried a biological experiment containing 5 mice. Also, 55 years ago this month was the first space rendezvous with Gemini 6 and 7. Following a nearly flawless countdown, Gemini 7 took to the skies on December 4th, 1965. Shortly after reaching orbit, they turned their spacecraft around and attempted to stay and keep with their Titan rockets suspended to the second stage, a task made difficult by a drifting of excess fuel. That activity completed, Borman and Lovell began their experiment program and settled in for their 2-week stay in space. They are continuing their suite of experiments and took photographs of the Earth awaiting the arrival of Gemini 6. On SN8 suffered minimal damage from the Gemini 7 takeoff. Liftoff and work are directed Gemini 6's Titan rocket on the next day. On December 12th, Gemini 7's ninth day in space. Mr. Baum and Stafford strapped into their spacecraft for a second launch attempt. The countdown, they had stressed the first attempt. The countdown clock ticked to 0 on the Titan's first 8 engines ignited and shut off after just 1.2 seconds, resulting in the first on-the-pad abort of the U.S. space program. Although the mission Hazy Center. That's all I got. Back to net, WB5OZL.
All right, thank you, Ms. Brenda. And this is KE5ICX. Yeah, I've seen the Gemini 6 several times. It's at the Oklahoma Science Center. Sorry about that. And it is quite interesting. I took a number of photographs of it while I was there. Not sure where it is now. They've moved it around. It gets around. All right. We are going back to Chaz. He has his segment for Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. I think I got the right slide set. So let me double check. There it is. Or maybe it didn't. I don't know. I'll figure it out while you tell us. Go ahead from KE5ICX.
Would be slide number 11 in the slide deck. Okay, Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Simon T. Carolyn, AC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. With there are 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year, happen to be 8 total constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky in a year. In her honor, we have continued that tradition of the constellation per week. And the sea monster flying in on a winged horse, Pegasus. She was saved by Perseus, who had just recently slain the snake-headed Medusa, and then later they married and had 7 sons and 1 daughter. After her death, mythology says she was placed by Athena among the stars near Perseus and Cassiopeia. Slide number 12. Alpheratz is also known as Alpha Andromedae, though officially in Andromeda it is also shared with the constellation Pegasus. It's one of the stars of the Great Square of Pegasus, in fact. Alpheratz is spectroscopic binary. It is blue or blue and white in color. Another star, Merak, is Beta Andromeda. It is a second magnitude star. Red Giant is a double star, but its companion is very faint at 14th magnitude. And Almach, which is Gamma Andromeda, this is one I actually have the students on Brookhaven campus, when we're on campus observing, look at. David Hutchinson writes that this star is a beautiful double star with good color contrast with a yellow primary and a green-blue secondary, and reminiscent of Albireo and Cygnus. I'm on slide number 13. I hope the video is catching up with us. M31 is the Andromeda Galaxy, one of the finest deep sky showpiece objects in the heavens. It is bright enough to be visible to the naked eye from a dark sky, but even in light blue skies, you can see it in binoculars. I've seen it, I believe, in binoculars from Brookhaven campus. M31 is best viewed at low powers if you're trying to take in the entire galaxy at once. Higher power can be used for viewing details in this galaxy. M31 spans over 3 degrees of the sky. Just to let you know, the moon is half a degree. So this is 6 moon widths across. That's how big it is. Big enough that there's a lot of detail to be seen. Recent estimates of M31 is, for distance estimates, is 2.65 million light years from the Earth, making it the furthest object visible to the naked or unaided eye for most people. Some sharp-eyed folks can see M33 and Triangulum under clear dark skies, which is a bit further away than M31 for most people, but M31 is the furthest that most people can see. Slide number 14, M32 is one of the companion galaxies to M31. It's an elliptical galaxy that appears spherical in shape. At low powers, especially in smaller telescope, it shows a little detail, so it is almost indistinguishable from a star. In fact, there is a star of similar brightness that's very close by, so you may have to look at a photograph of M31, M32 to be able to tell which object is the star and which object is the galaxy. Slide number 15. M110 is another companion galaxy to M31. It appears further out from the nucleus of M31 than M32 does. M32 and M32 and M110 are analogous to the Magellanic Clouds of the Milky Way. But whereas the Magellanic Clouds are irregular galaxies, M32 and M110 are elliptical. Also, like the Milky Way, the Andromeda Galaxy has other smaller companion galaxies further out. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. There are more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation Andromeda, the Princess. I'm just giving you a sampling of a few of those objects. The Astronomical League has over 60 different observing programs, of which have all about 100 objects. If you observe just 10 of these objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pin in about a year. And that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Andromeda, the Princess. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Doris Harwell for the research and the words that I borrow on the deep sky objects that I've used tonight. I have also used the website occasionally, constellation-guide.com, for information too. Next week, we're going to take a break from the Constellation of the Week, and we're going to present a special program on the Star of Bethlehem. And this is KF5JHA. Back to you, Tom. Thank you.
Very good. good. Thank you, Jazz. I appreciate it. Thank you for giving me the cue since I also had the wrong script. You went 2 weeks ahead, so I was just picked the latest entry, and that's actually for next week. So my apologies to everyone. I got a lot to say I'm sorry for, I guess. Okay, let's see here. Let me go ahead and talk about space launches for this week. This information comes from spaceflightnow.com/launch schedule. You can find these. Nearly all of them are televised or streamed, live streamed on the internet. Just check your local listings, as they say. December 14th, we have a launch from Plistik Cosmodrome in Russia. The Russian government Angara A5 rocket will launch on its second orbital test flight. That's all it says. I'm not familiar with that rocket type. I'm going to have to look that one up. In December, we have from the Satish Dhawan Space Center in India, India's Small Satellite Launch Vehicle, or SSLV, will launch on its first orbital test flight, consisting of 3 solid-fueled stages and a liquid-fueled upper stage. The SSLV is a new Indian launch vehicle designed to carry small satellites into low Earth orbit. Then we have on December 17th, no date yet, but this one also from the Dhawan Space Center, India's Polar Satellite, this is at 4:30 a.m. by the way, India's Polar Satellite Vehicle, or PSLV, designated PSLV-C50, will launch the CMS-1 communications satellite, formerly known as GSAT-12R, and is designed to replace the GSAT-12 communications satellite, which was launched in 2011. The mission will use the PSLV-XL version of the rocket stage with 6 strap-on solid rocket boosters. We have a Falcon 9 launch from Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. A Falcon 9 rocket will launch a classified payload for the U.S. National Reconnaissance Office. The mission is designated Enroll 108. First stage booster is expected to attempt a return to the launch site landing at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. On December 17th, we'll have a Russian Soyuz rocket launching from Cosmodrome. Will launch 36 satellites into orbit for OneWeb, which is developing a constellation of hundreds of satellites in low Earth orbit for low latency broadband communications. It'll use the classic Soyuz 2.1B rocket for use with a Fregat upper stage. December 19th, we have Launcher 1 Cosmic Girl. Will launch. That's a Boeing 747, a Virgin Galactic 747, by the way. Will launch on its second flight after dropping from a modified 747 carrier jet. The flight will be conducted under contract with NASA's Venture Class Launch Services program, carrying 14 CubeSats to orbit for NASA field centers, U.S. educational institutions, laboratories, and the ELENA 20 rideshare program. On the ELENA rideshare program, I guess they're getting smart. They figured out that if AMSAT can do it, they can do it too. There is a Long March launch. Long March 8 rocket, which is the Chinese medium lift rocket, will launch on its inaugural flight with a secret payload, XJY-7. That's pretty obscure. And then finally, I've got for you tonight, December 28th, the Soyuz launch, a CSO-2, an Arianespace Soyuz rocket designated VS-25 will launch on a mission from the Guyana Space Center in South America. The Soyuz will carry into polar orbit the second Composite Spatial Optique military reconnaissance satellite for CNES and DGA, the French Defense Procurement Agency. The CSO-2 satellite is the second of 3 new generation high-resolution optical imaging satellites for the French military, replacing the Helios 2 spy series satellite series. The Soyuz 1B, or in this case the Soyuz STB rocket, will use a Fregat upper stage. Nobody can forget the Fregat upper stage. All right, there's plenty many more there as well, flights that have yet to have actual dates on them, so I gave you the ones with dates, but you can check that weekly if you want to, or even daily. They update it pretty aggressively. Spaceflightnow.com/launch schedule, and you'll find all this information there. Okay, let's see. I guess I can take additional check-ins. I'll go ahead and take them now. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from.
Alpha Alpha 5 Sierra Alpha, Sean and Irving.
Juliet Delta Whiskey, John in Norman, Oklahoma, and I think Joe, KG5CMG, tried to check in earlier too. K5JW.
All right, well, I potentially got three, so let me get AA5SA, Sean in Irving, K5JDW, John in Norman, Oklahoma, and there was another station I ignored. Would you please come again? I'm not sure whether you're on Echolink or local, but if I have not acknowledged you, please come now. All right, maybe we'll pick them up towards the end of the net. If in the chat window, oh, thank you. Okay, I got you. I'll get them on the next round. I'm going to go ahead and go to Brenda, WB50ZL. What do you have for recent astronomical discoveries?
Thanks, Tom. This is WB50ZL. This title, the article is entitled, "A Look at the Sun's Dusty Environment." Researchers from the Laboratory for Atmospheric and Space Physics, LASP, at the University of Colorado Boulder are diving into the dusty environment that surrounds the sun, a search that could help to reveal how planets like Earth come into being. The pursuit comes by way of NASA's Parker Solar Probe, a pioneering mission that has taken scientists closer to Earth's home star than any spacecraft to date. Over 2 years, the probe has circled the sun 6 times, hitting maximum speeds of roughly 290,000 miles per hour. In the process, the Parker team has learned a lot about the microscopic grains of dust that lie just beyond the sun's atmosphere, said David Malaspina, a space plasma physicist at LASP. In new research, for example, he and his colleagues discovered that the densities of these bits of rock and ice seem to vary wildly over the span of months. Not something scientists were expecting. Every time we go into a new orbit and we think we understand what we're seeing around the sun, nature goes and surprises us, said Malaspina. Also, an associate professor in the Department of Astrophysical and Planetary Sciences. He will present the group's results Tuesday, December 8th at the 2020 virtual fall meeting of the American Geophysical Union. Malaspina said that dust can give researchers an unexpected and tiny window into the processes that formed Earth and its neighboring planets more than 4.5 billion years ago. By learning how our star processes dust, we can extrapolate that to other solar systems. We can extrapolate that to other solar systems to learn more about planet formation and how a cloud of dust becomes a solar system, he said. The area just around the sun, a hot and radiation-rich environment, is often dustier than you might imagine. Malaspina said it contains more grains of dust by volume than most other open expanses of space in the solar system. That's because the star, through gravity and other forces, pulls dust toward it from millions to billions of miles away, a bit like a vacuum cleaner. But this vacuum cleaner is imperfect. As dust particles get closer to the sun, its radiation pushes on them more and more. Some of these grains of dust will begin to blow in the other direction and can even fly out of the solar system entirely. The Wide Field Imager for Parker Solar Probe instrument suite on board the spacecraft found the first evidence for the existence of this dust-devoid region known as the dust-free zone more than 90 years after it was predicted. What you get is this really interesting environment where all of these particles are moving inward, but once they reach the near-sun environment, they can be blown away. Since launching in 2018, the Parker Solar Probe, built and operated by the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory, which also leads the mission for NASA, has flown to within about 11.6 million miles of the sun's surface. On each of the Parker's orbits around the sun, the spacecraft collided with thousands of grains of dust. Many of these particles vaporize on the spot, creating a small burst of charged particles that the probe can detect using the 5 antennae that are part of its Fields experiment. LASP plays an important part in this experiment, which is led by University of California, Berkeley. Think of it like studying insect populations by counting the splatters on your car's windshield. You get a small puff of plasma, Malaspina said. By looking at these spikes, you can understand how many dust impacts we're getting hit by. Malaspina and his colleagues were originally hoping to see those puffs to pinpoint where exactly the solar system's inward flying dust becomes outward flying dust, but they stumbled on something puzzling in the process. The concentrations of dust that the team recorded seemed to vary by as much as 50% between Parker's solar orbits and the sun. It's really interesting because the time scale that it takes for dust to move in toward the sun is thousands to millions of years, Malaspina said. So how do we get variation in just 3 or 4 months? This dusty environment, in other words, may be a lot more complicated and fast-shifting than scientists previously thought. Malaspina said that the team will need to wait for Parker to complete more orbits to know exactly what's happening. He's just excited to be part of this once-in-a-lifetime chance to run a finger along the sun's dusty shelf. This is the only in situ measurement we are going to get for a long time in this inner solar system, Malaspina said. We're trying to make the best of it and learn as much as we can. Okay, this is from ScienceDaily.com. Back to net, WB5OZL.
Thank you, Ms. Brenda, and thank you for doing these segments every week. This is KE5ICX. I'm in net control for tonight's Skynet. We got 6 minutes left. Let me see what we can do here. We do have ISS. I'll tell you what, let me go ahead and ask if anybody has any questions. I'm going to reverse this tonight. If anybody has any questions that they would like to ask about the net, our usual suspects are here. Any astronomical or space questions, space exploration, please come now. We'll finish with that. Otherwise, I'll just give you satellite passes. So, any questions for this evening, please come now.
Alpha Delta 5, Sierra Echo.
That would be Chuck, 85SC. Go ahead with your question.
Yes, with the alignment of Jupiter and Saturn, the 2 largest planets, can their combined gravity affect tidal actions here on Earth or the Earth's crust? It's been in the back of my head for a while, and I wanted to throw that up to the group and see if anyone has seen anything or heard anything or knows anything about it. Back to net.
KF5 JHA.
KF5 DLL.
Oh, I think people know the answer to this one. I think a few of us do too. But I'm going to start with KF5JHA and then KF5PLL. So go ahead, Chaz.
Thank you, Tom. Just to let all of you know, once again, my degree is in astrophysics, so this is my wheelhouse. So, no, there's not going to be any difference. When they're in conjunction with each other like this, there's really not any difference. It's very, very minute differences that would not have any effect on the Earth crust and no possibilities of of any triggering of earthquakes or anything like that. So I hope that's pretty clear. Do you have any further questions or follow-up?
Delta 5, Sierra Echo. I have no further questions. You answered my question. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, there's a lot of myths out there, especially if you talk about astrology, but the bigger effects on the Earth is the moon and the sun. Those are the two big gravity pulls on the Earth. And those, actually, there are times when the moon is pulling on the Earth in a significant way where it can help trigger some earthquakes. That's statistically true, so maybe that helps you out. KF5JJ, back to net control.
Another topic in 5BB.
All right, hold up here. I've got you, Bill. KF5PLL. Huey, did you have anything you wanted to add? Or tell Chaz that he's all wrong? Go ahead.
Normal state.
KF5PLL. One, I would not tell Chaz that he is wrong under any circumstances. And two, in the late 70s, mid-70s, all the planets lined up. I believe that happened circa 280 years. It was postulated California would crack off and fall in the ocean. In fact, objects in your house have more of a gravitational pull on you than even all the planets lined up. My biggest concern is something that we don't see gravimetrically at this point, such as a neutron star or a black hole that wanders in the vicinity of our solar system. Then we have something to truly worry about. Stay warm. KF5PLL.
Thank you, Huey. And I was desperately looking up the book about that. It was called The Jupiter Effect. It's 1974 by two guys. I don't know what they were. Irvin and Stephen Flagman. And they predicted all sorts of terrible things would happen, including the San Andreas Fault. The book became a bestseller. So there you have it. All right, Bill, N5BB. Go ahead.
Yes, this is N5BB. Much earlier than that, Chaz made a comment about the lunar occultation of Venus, which occurred today at about 3:40 local time. The problem is that it was like 2 degrees above the western horizon, and the sun was up above it. And so I'm looking right now at a graph of where this was practical to look at that occultation. And essentially it was only very practical on the west coast, and even there it's pretty low in the sky during sunlight. So just wanted to comment there that these occultations occurring at a couple degrees above the horizon aren't going to be very easy to see from a residential location in this area inside BB.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. I'm one of those folks, too. I have trees all around me, except in my yard. I don't have any trees in my yard. So what does that tell you about my neighborhood? All right, this is KE5ICX. I'll take final check-ins, and we're closing it out. Any additional check-ins this evening, please come now with your call sign.
Kilo India 5, Juliet Charlie Mike.
All right, I've got KI5JCM. I'll go ahead and ask for your name and location, too, if you don't mind, since you're our final check-in.
This is Thomas in Euless, and just to add traffic, if you really want to see an aurora, I can get some colored film and a really bright flashlight and shine it over your tree. Back to you, Net Control.
All right, thank you, Thomas. Well, let's see. We had a grand total, I believe, of 33 check-ins and probably a bunch of lurkers out there, too. Thank you all who checked in this evening, and for those of you putting up on the stream tonight, it was better than it was last week, but I found one more gremlin in the wires. Go figure. So I know what the final thing is with our audio problem, I believe this time. But I told you that last time, so I lied. Let's see here. Now I lost my place for the end of the script, but I kind of remember what it is, which is thanks for tuning in. Thank you for checking in this evening. We hope you'll be here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. because, as you know, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. It's actually fun if you've never done a net, or if you've done a net and you haven't done one recently, or even if you did one yesterday, it doesn't matter. Send an email to nets@w5fc.org and we'll contact you. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as the video streams, video archives, and all that other stuff at w5fc.org. Until next Saturday night, this is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray Tom, and I'll be closing the net at 22:32 local time. 7-3, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And we'll be back in about 5 minutes. 5 minutes for the Afterglow Movie Net, which is I can't remember, Automa? Whatever. Just come back in 5 minutes. It'll be fun, trust me. This is KE5ICX Clear.
The name of the movie is Automata, which is plural of automaton. W5OZL. See you in a couple.
All right, very good. And somebody gets to volunteer for net control. We'll see who that might be. Anybody want to be net control that's listening right now? I'll ask again later. another sheet of paper here. I'll be right back. Alright, I guess I'll take it. This is KE5ICX. You may have heard me on the previous net. How lucky you are to find me again. So let's see here. Let me find the info on the movie. Oh, I gotta go to the other document. Hold on. Alright, I got it, sort of, kind of. So, if you didn't hear it, I gave the kind of the description of this thing, and maybe I can pronounce this thing correctly. Tonight's Afterglow Info, Jacques Valken had one job, to stop robots who tried to modify themselves. It had all begun in the 1980s when Windows evolved into the graphics-driven operating system. But when Clippy, the MS Avatar client, became self-aware, that's when things really went askew. After Clippy suggested people, quote, get off your duff and make something of yourself, and then sent an electrical shock through the computer, the days of humans were numbered, and the robot threat was real. Vulcan found another creature attempting to upgrade itself, the laughable spiders with acid syringes. A bad idea all around, but they were trying to turn themselves into outdoor weed whackers and automated golf caddies with elevator music. It was creative ideas gone too far. What he really needed was to figure out just who was making these robots self-aware and created absurd improvement ideas. The sharper image seemed like a good place to start. Vulcan thought. Join us for another robot gone bad SF film, Automata. You can't Automata, never mind. From 2014, right now. Alright, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and take check-ins. So if you have seen Automata from 2017 and seen it recently, or even if you haven't, I would like you to check in. Even if you haven't seen the film, it's okay. So I'm going to take check-ins. Please come with your call sign, your name. If you want to give your location, that's fine. Let me know if you saw this movie. So I'll take check-ins. Please come now.
Golf 5, Zombies Need Jobs. Frank in Flower Mound, and yes, I saw the movie.
This is N5BB, November 5, Bravo, Bill in Irving. You said 2017. I saw the 2014 movie, which I hope is what you were talking about. So yes, I saw it, as long as it's the 2014 movie, N5BB.
This is WB5OZL, Brenda DeSoto. Yes, I saw the movie.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo. This is Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, I've seen the movie.
All right, let me get those folks, and then I'll go over and check Echolink. I've got KG5ZNJ, Frank. Yep, he did see the movie. And Bill, you're right. I don't know why I said 2017. It says 2014 right here. So N5BB, Bill, in Irving, he saw it. WB5OZL, Miss Brenda, yep, she saw it. And DeSoto, KB5SOK, Sean, in Fort Worth, yeah, he saw it. Anyone else want to check in? Whether you saw it or not in material, we'll talk about any robot-y things you want to. Additional check-ins, please come in.
November Golf 5 Yankee, Allen in North Garland.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, Jana Whitford, I've sent.
All right, picked up two more. I got NG5Y, Alan in North Garland. Hey, Alan, did you see the film?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, excellent. I got KG5BZWJ near Weatherford, not in Weatherford, but near it. Yep, he saw the film. One more time over here, and I'll check Echolink. I'm having a hard time kind of zeroing in on who's there, but I'll ask directly. Anyone else over here would like to join us for the Afterglow movie? Today's movie, or this week's movie, is Automata from 2014. 2014. All right, I will take Echolink check-ins if you'd like to join us. Got the thing kind of zeroed in a little bit. On Echolink, please come with your call sign, name, your location if you like, and did you see Automata from 2014? Echolink only now. Okay, no one. Well, that's unusual, but we'll go with what we got. So, the way we do this, and if you'd like to check in later on, you may want to make comments, and you suddenly remember this movie, and you break out in, a cold sweat or something, you want to mention that. It's entirely possible. Many science fiction plots sound the same, look the same, even end the same. Others do not, but you may suddenly remember this film as when you had an unhappy childhood or something. You have to be pretty young since it was only 2014 the movie came out. But we can do that as well. So, let me see. We'll just take it in the order we got them this week. There's not a lot of folks here tonight, so that's okay. KG5ZNJ, Frank in Flower Mound. Frank? You need to tell us about the plot. What did you think about the plot? Oh, I forgot to mention. Yeah, we do the plot first, then we do characterization, then we do special effects, music, and all that stuff at the end because usually we run out of time. But who knows? So, KG5ZNJ, Frank, tell us about the plot to Automata.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Zombies Need Jobs. Well, when I started watching this movie, it was evident that it was a dystopian apocalypse-type film, and, it quickly struck me as trying to be a lot like Blade Runner, with the investigative guy going around chasing the robots and figuring out what went wrong with them. So these so-called saviors of humanity were built, these robots, to help save whatever was left of, all these people who got wiped out by the solar storms. And, the more it went, it started off like maybe it was going to be a good movie, and it was kind of stylized and very artistic and trying to be creative. And it made me remember something from Canada. Some of you may remember SCTV and Johnny LaRue, who had the Lunchtime Street Beef show, which was played by John Candy, and he would go around during lunch hour in the small town of Mellonville, and he would ask people what their beef was. And he'd have a topic, and he'd always try to be edgy. And one of his topics came to mind when he once said, John Cassavetes, creative filmmaking or just jerking around? Well, that question should have been posed to this film, I think.
but I think we all know the answer. Anyways, it was a rather terrible film, and they were trying to mask it with artistic creativity, kind of like really bad modern art. So the film just got tedious after a while, especially in the desert scene where they were just marching to seemingly nowhere, and it was just longer than it should have been, and just a stale plot that just evolved slowly and painfully, and didn't really want to sit through it, but I forced myself. And you say, where are these robots going? And eventually we find out they go to some kind of a junkyard where they have a little base. And then they were creating on this big table what looked like a big diorama of whatever their grand creation was. So, you know, these robots were supposed to be self-learning and exponentially learning at a faster rate than humanity. And, you know, in a couple of days they could evolve like humans did in 1,000,000 years. So I was thinking, you know, what is this grand creation on the table all laid out? Is it maybe a massive terraforming device to save the planet, right? Or maybe a massive power generator of some sort, maybe that could magnetize the Earth's core, and that would shield it somehow from the solar storms. You know, something like that. They were going to build something to save humanity. But instead we got a mechanical cockroach. It served no purpose in the film whatsoever. It didn't speak. It didn't really do anything. It just crawled around and blurted little noises. And, yeah, it didn't do anything. So I was bitterly disappointed with that. I thought maybe they were gonna you know, try to save the Earth, and the powers that be didn't want the Earth saved. That would have been kind of the start of a good story, maybe. But it was pretty terrible. You know, a cockroach. I mean, I would have preferred they made something a little more useful. You know, maybe a Internet of Things garbage disposal, or a smart toilet, or maybe a good chess computer. Anyways, that's what I thought about this plot. Horrible. KG5ZNJ, back to you, Tom.
Oh my. Horrible. Stale. Dystopian. And that was the best part. Alright, let me see what Bill has to say. N5BB, Bill, your comments on the plot from KE5ICX.
This is N5BB. Well, let me start by saying I wanted to like the movie because the way it started, the first part of it, I thought maybe it had some potential. I thought it might work out to be an okay movie. But various things just kind of fell apart. You heard me say it before. I'll say it again. There is way too much unnecessary violence in so many of these movies. It's just crazy. And immoral violence. I mean, horrible violence. I mean, the bad guys are just shooting up anything and stealing people's, you know, young mothers with their babies. I mean, come on. This doesn't happen. So I don't like them using that as a plot device to pull everybody's heartstrings. And then the bad guys are way too bad, and it was just unnecessary. In fact, them putting the birth of his daughter right during this, it was all very contrived, because then they could talk about bringing new life into the world, just like the robots were bringing new life into the world. Because that cockroachy thing was supposed to have some kind of biological piece in it. So, I don't know, contrived. To me, they took, this appears to have been written only for this movie. It doesn't appear like it was an outstanding science fiction book that they converted to the movie. They seem to take some of Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics, and they kind of modified them and put them in here. So it sounded like to me they were trying to act like they were kind of the writer was trying to kind of put some of those Isaac Asimov robotic ideas, his iRobot ideas, into this. But just as with the iRobot movie, they screwed it up. I agree that trek across the desert, the only reason for it was just to eat up some time. I mean, there's no other reason. No other reason at all. Other things that bothered me about the movie. This movie came out in 2014 it was filmed in Bulgaria, by the way. And I think some of the crew or something were from Spain. But one thing that bothered me was this was only 5 years ago, or 6 years ago. But they had things like these clunky-looking pagers, and they had dot matrix printers putting out their emails didn't come in on the screen. They came out with this piece of paper. Come on, this is supposed to be a futuristic movie. All their cars were rotten cars from 1999 or something. You know, they didn't look like cars from this millennium. That's kind of stupid. And the dying scene, you know, where Jacques, his boss, is there dying and muttering things to him, that's also so contrived. So, I don't know, too many of these stupid contrived plot things that are just, they're melodramatic plot devices used in so many bad movies over the years. So that's what bothers me about it. Again, I didn't like how Melanie Griffith was killed off so much. She probably got paid quite a bit for the couple of minutes that she was in the movie before Dr. Dupre got executed there early on. N5BB. So, mixed feelings. Mostly negative. N5BB.
All right, thank you, Bill. And you made some good points. I've got some notes here, maybe counterpoint. I don't know. We'll find out. Brenda, WB50ZL, your thoughts on the plot for the movie Automata from 2014. Go ahead.
Wow, this is WB50ZL. Oh, that's hard to follow. Such negative thoughts. I rather like this movie. Admittedly, it had its problems, but to me, it's a pretty good movie if you can't tear yourself away and you really want to know what happens next. And it had some really good actors, Antonio Banderas and Melanie Griffith, you know, top-rate actors. And also, the Blue Robot was voiced by Javier Bardem, who won the Oscar for No Country for Old Men. So they definitely had some talent. I liked the music. I thought that was good. And, it definitely created a look and feel to this universe they've created, a lot like Blade Runner, very dystopian, very depressing. Nobody laughed or smiled, or there just wasn't much to be happy about. But it raises the intriguing idea of what if robots become self-aware, sentient, self-replicating, and that's always an interesting concept to explore. It's scary to think about. I don't think these two robots have a chance. They built the little dog robot, which was annoying. I'll give you that. It was just annoying. Out of components that humans made. I question whether robots would have the knowledge and, and technical expertise to make more components, especially 2 robots. Maybe a bunch of robots that have been working in factories could, but I question whether they could carry on like that. And, you know, I don't know what they were going to do wandering around out in the desert. Sand is really hard on machinery, and there's just 2 of them. So I wouldn't give them a very large chance of survival. But, you know, the guy having his daughter there, a new life and all that, it was just kind of a cheesy tip of the hat to, oh, everything's going to be okay. Then they see the ocean and everything's going to be all right. And this is a world where 99% of the population has been killed off by radiation. I would imagine the rest of them probably have all kinds of illnesses because of the radiation. And there wasn't much going on in the way of technology other than the robots. So, you don't just have a really great feel at the end that everything's going to be okay, it's going to be wonderful. It just, to me, it just kind of wound down at the end. But still, I found it very watchable and intriguing, and despite the long desert scenes, which I agree were way too long. And I agree with Bill about the unnecessary violence, but that's so true of so many movies today. It's like, why did you have to do that? It doesn't advance the story, and it certainly doesn't entertain me. Maybe other people are entertained by it, but not me. It's just not my cup of tea. It's filmed in Bulgaria, and maybe that's what all the cars actually looked like there in 2014, and the technology, they may be a few steps behind us. Back to net, WB5OZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. And this is KE5ICX, I'm net control. For tonight's After Glow Movie Net, we're talking about Automata from 2014. Next on the list is KB5SOK, Sean in Fort Worth. Your thoughts on the plot?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. I think I maybe fell somewhere in between. I didn't like it as much as Brenda did, but I don't know that I hated it as much as Bill did. Even though I do agree with a lot of the points that Bill made with it. Yeah, it was definitely long. The desert scene was definitely overdone. Yeah, the violence was pretty senseless. The cops' hatred was way over the top, but I guess that's more of a characterization thing. And then, yeah, there was definitely some plot holes in this. I do think, like several of you, I think the beginning started out that I really thought this was going to be pretty good. I thought it had potential, and I think they could have been, but it did kind of go south the more the movie went on. I didn't hate it, but I'm not sure that I really liked it either. You know, had I paid money to go to a theater, I would have been probably quite upset. But for free, it was okay for an afternoon movie. One of the plot parts I thought was a little weird was that they, when they were explaining the very first one that they built, excuse me, that didn't have any rules, that claimed that it was the one that created the encryption. But I would think that if it got to that level, being that smart, it would never create encryption, that it could be broken by other robots. So that plot seems to be a pretty major hole. And yeah, this is pretty typical, you know, like Arrow had said, it's a kind of movie where, yeah, robots become self-aware. We've seen this done many times and done better. But yeah, no, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen, but I wouldn't have spent any money on it either. Back to net control. This is KB9SOK.
Okie doke. Thank you, Sean. Next up is Alan, NG5Y in North Garland. Alan, what are your thoughts on Automata from 2014?
Well, compared to the other movies that we've watched lately, I really actually enjoyed this movie. It did borrow a lot from iRobot and from Blade Runner and various others. I agree with the others. The unnecessary violence was detracted from the movie, and yes, the scene in the desert just went on forever and forever and forever, but it was actually there for a purpose, and that was to show that the robots really didn't know what to do with the situation they were in, other than just trudge forward. But the baby mechanical cockroach was kind of the sour part of the movie. Why did they make it? What was it for? And that's all I got for you, NG5Y.
All right, thank you, Alan. Next up is KG5BZWJ, near Weatherford. Jay, your thoughts on the plot for this film? Go ahead.
This is KG5BZW. Well, I mean, like a lot of the others have already replied or commented, and I don't hate it, but it's not like it's really that good either. I don't know, there's problems kind of with the premise, that, you know, the robots can't, should not be able to repair themselves. Well, you know, anybody that's ever had a computer since the 90s and had to, you know, go through the boot up sequence and in your Linux or Windows or whatever system is like, oh, there's a file system error, and there's a scan that you know, tries to fix it. I mean, to some extent, I think any type of system is going to have some fundamental ability to repair itself in a way that it wouldn't necessarily be conscious of, but it would still be repairing itself. So, I mean, the whole premise of that it takes the conscious to repair itself is like, yeah, not really. But granted, if it's one of those things, it's like I'd have to dig into some actual artificial intelligence books about topics about, like, you know, how the artificial mind approaches a certain problem, and that, you know, it's not programmed to do it, but it figures out how to do it anyway. Okay, in that sense, yeah, there might be something, but it's like that wasn't really explored, and it didn't really go into enough depth there. In fact, there was a lot of places where, as the film went, it's like, yeah, it didn't really go into any depth there. You're just supposed to accept it as is. Okay, and another thing, hold on, let me reset. I saw this, I'll have to disagree with Bill about the futuristic world, and how there was some, you know, some things that just seem to be kind of, I don't know what to call it, since it's a future world and it's an imagined world, but yeah, I'll call it anachronistic. Oh, what the hell? Anachronism is. Anyway, what I'm trying to say, the word's not important. It's a combination of, you know, of technologies of different eras, because there aren't that many people. this is a small. This somehow this city exists, but it's not. You know, you don't have the full support structure. So I don't know that they happen to have a whole bunch of fax machines and they use it with their communication system. I don't know. Maybe it's still kind of stupid, but at least for me, when I was watching it, didn't seem that absurd. Granted, I know it's like you have to accept a lot of things, and maybe I figured, oh, I'll just accept this, and maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. And the same thing with the technology is like the car technology. I figured it's just, you know, you got power junk or power stuff, and some things with the power are like 21st century awesome stuff, and some of it's like 20th century or whatever. It's like you build with what you've got, and you don't necessarily have the full of or whatever. I'm trying to get away from this topic's getting away from me. Read it one more time. So actually, I think I've spoken for a few minutes. I'm trying to sum up. I'm not sure if I got a summary, because the whole film doesn't really. It's like the film. I feel like I can't sum myself up. Like the film can't really sum itself up. It just tried to tack on a happy ending at the end, and I don't know. This film did have problems. I'll just leave it at that. And yeah, that's all I can say. KG5BZW.
All right, thank you, Jay. Thanks for your comments. We're down at the bottom of the list right now. Bobby was listening WD5 BPX, but he has since left. He said he had to go to bed. It's past his bedtime. Anybody else want to join us this evening? We're talking about the movie Automata from 2014. Please come now with your call sign name, and did you see the film?
VT9B, Michael, Plano. Just finished it.
All right, well, that's good. Michael, WT9V, you're called up because you're at the bottom of the list now, and now you're going to have to spill. What did you think about the plot?
Well, yeah, so I'm not really sure. It was pretty good. The fact that I actually went all the way through it this time, unlike some of the previous movies where I just kind of like got bored halfway through. It was very much Blade Runner at first, except the cars weren't flying. But it really felt like that, except for the fact they had what was it, early 2000s Caprice as a police car in 2044, so a little iffy, but whatever. I don't really have a whole lot to say about it, but it was an interesting plot, the idea of evolving intelligence, getting beyond what we can understand. I still don't know where they were going. I missed that part, but it's okay. Didn't really matter. Or maybe they were going to a spot where it was more radioactive. I don't know. Yeah. Like I said, I was only trying to catch parts of it, but it didn't catch all of it, I guess. Little bits here and there. But basically, I liked it. I thought it was interesting. Yeah, not bad. Better. Somebody besides Brenda must have picked this one. Anyway, back to that 79B.
Okay, very good, Michael, and thank you for your comments. So I guess it's to me now. I get to hear all the comments. I have to say I was a little surprised. I thought that the reviews would be a little more positive than what they were, but in the end, I didn't mind it. I thought it was an interesting film. Yeah, the desert thing was a little long, but overall, I kind of enjoyed it. The idea that mankind's kind of pooping out and what's evolving is what always happens on Earth is that one life form of sorts disappears and another life form appears. And the same thing applies to the robots or the androids or whatever you want to call them at this point, because they created and they self-repair and they improve. And one of the lines I think in the film was that if the two protocols were not enforced, they would become so advanced that they would just overshadow mankind. So they were deliberately not allowed to do that. The other thing, some of the allegories, the similarities that were done, I thought was quite interesting. They had a battery. This battery can last forever, right? This is one of the things that was mentioned. Now, where did it come from? Who knows? How did the robot get it? I don't know. But that is kind of saying if you can self-repair and you've got this battery that lasts practically forever or for a very, very long time, you have the ability to stake a beachhead in society or in life, if you want to call it that, in quotes, being able to think and be self-aware. So those are all human traits or animal traits on this planet. The cockroach that was created, that was a new form of life, I guess you would call it, better adapted for living on a Earth that is dying out. So kind of a cockroach, yes, with a mind, yeah. So why not? That would be the most logical thing to do, is make it so that it could travel and be something and survive. Bipedal robots don't really do well in the sand. This one did, because it was low to the ground and did all the things that you would expect, sand beetles and things like that. So the design was very logical, and it doesn't matter. Why should it look like them? Any more than, the reason we make robots to look like us when we do, and it has been in all the movies, would suggest that. So I don't know. I didn't mind that. The thing in the desert, I don't know. They're slaves. They've an exodus, perhaps, a biblical exodus type of thing. Not sure what they're going to do, yeah, but in the end, they do find that they have to keep going. They don't have any choice. They can't go back. Having the baby on Earth was kind of a silly thing to do because there's not much left of humanity. People are dying. The radiation is killing everyone. So that didn't surprise me there. The look and feel of the film, although this does indeed go into some of the stylistic things, I thought was memorable. It created a mood. And to be honest with you, we mentioned Blade Runner as a inspiration. It is, but Blade Runner 2049 looks to me like it got a lot of its inspiration from this film because they took it to the next step, to the next level. So I didn't mind it at all. Plot-wise, slow. I think it was trying to establish a feeling with the film. As I've mentioned before in many films, science fiction, you sometimes have to linger a little bit so that your audience becomes familiar with the environment, and sometimes you take too long. I'm sure that in this film they went ahead and put in some of the action sequences to keep people interested. It may have been demanded of the producer or the financer, I don't know. Ibanez, who is the director on this thing, I think he did a fairly good job. He's a relatively new director, and I think that the film overall worked well. I did not feel like I was sitting around for a very long time watching this film. I thought it moved at a reasonably good pace for what it was. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give it a thumbs up. I thought it was good and not fantastic. Would I watch it again? Yeah, I think I would. I think I would watch it again. I thought there were some interesting ideas here, and there may have been some parts that I missed out on that I didn't pick up on the first time. And I'm still thinking about the film and things that I derive, meaning from, or meaningful things from the film. So I'm okay with it. I really am. I didn't mind it. I thought it was one of our better films that we've seen, and I'll watch it again. I remember when I saw Blade Runner for the first time, I didn't like it, and it took a repeat viewing. In fact, I watched it a few days later and went back to the theater because I kept thinking about the themes. Second time I liked it, and by the end after 3 or 4 viewings, it became one of my favorite films. So science fiction is kind of a hard pill to digest sometimes. I'm just wondering if maybe this might be one of them. Okay, this is KE5ICX, and we're talking about Automata, a movie from 2014, starring Antonio Banderas. So we'll go to the top of the list. We're going to talk about the characterization now, and we'll see how that works out. We'll start with KG5ZNJ. Frank, characterization. There were no Canadians hurt in this film, I don't think, so maybe you can tell us, how the characters worked out. From KE5ICX.
This is KG5ZNJ. Well, I think part of the problem is, the film actually did look good at the beginning, and I think it set expectations, and that's part of the problem. But yeah, characters. Well, one of the first characters was the bad cop. I think he was the first in the whole movie. And I got a kick out of his slick back greaser hair and his kind of like early 80s shades, cool guy shades that he wore at night. And then he had his plastic shower curtain of a trench coat. I thought that was really funny. But then he turned into a psychopath pretty quick. And, well, I mean, it comes down to, you had Antonio Banderas, you had Melanie Griffith, you had the guy from Jackie Brown, the bail bondsman guy, and, you had Bardem there, I forget his first name there, but, he got an Oscar, and I think pretty much everybody else on that list probably got nominated for Oscars here and there in their career, so you had this pretty amazing cast of actors to play these characters, and it just shows that if the story just isn't there and the writing isn't there, it's all for nothing. So that's all I have to say about the characters, really. That's what it comes down to. It's KG5ZNJ. I got to call it a night. I have to deal with the kid there, so I'll be saying good night, guys. KG5ZNJ, clear.
All right, thank you, Frank, and good comments this evening. Appreciate it. We're going to Bill, N5BB. Your thoughts on characterization for Automata from 2014 from KE5ICX. I'll bet he's in the little boys' room. I'll come back to him then. WB5OZL, Miss Brenda, your thoughts on characterization.
This is WB5OZL. On the whole, I thought the characterization was pretty good. The characters were well cast. I don't think anybody's mentioned yet that the voice of the girl robot was done by Melanie Griffith. And I thought she did a really good job. I thought the voice helped to make the character. And that silly face, which she threw down in the end, which is pretty symbolic. But what I like about this movie is it moves along the conversation of what is it to be human, what is it to be robots. And if you ask, what's it mean to be sentient? Well, we think of ourselves, and we can't imagine anything else. For example, we are independent. You are you, and they are them. If you ever watch a toddler, comes a point in his development when he can look in the mirror and recognize himself, and he realizes that he is separate from the others and an individual. And you question it, could you have the Borg, a hive mind, where they're not individuals but they're part of a group? Would they still be sentient? It's of course it's debatable. And you got a group of robots and they're moving through the desert or building another robot, and they all work together like they're connected. Is that sentience? I don't know. It's a good question. If you had a group of humans, you would probably have a leader, either by force or by consensus, and he would say, we're going that way, and the others would follow, because that's what works with human societies. Or if you didn't have a real clear leader, you might vote on which way to go. But you wouldn't have that with the robots. They all just seem to do the same thing without discussion or questioning or any kind of decision-making process. So I think, to me, this is a part of that. What makes you human, or what makes you sentient? So I don't know. This is something that I would have to think about a lot. Just because a robot is smarter and smarter and can beat you at chess, does that make it sentient? Does it have to have some kind of self-awareness or sense of self to be sentient? To me, that's the question. All right, back to Nat, WB50ZL.
Thank you, Brenda. And I kind of agree with you there, too. Next up, Sean, KB5SOK. Sean, what did you think about the characterizations for Automata from 2014 from KE5ICX?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. You made kind of backtrack a little bit, but your comment about the cockroach, it was actually something I meant to bring up and just kind of forgot. I got to start writing some notes when I watch these films. But the cockroach made sense to me for them to do that, just like you said, because scientists have said that if we ever did have a nuclear war, the one thing that would survive would be cockroaches. And then they showed that cockroach out in the sand when they were traveling across. So it makes sense that that is something that they built, because they know that they're virtually indestructible and can adapt. So yeah, that part actually did make sense to me in the movie. But as far as characterization, I don't think the characterizations were bad. Like everyone said, very good actors. The only character that bothered me at all really was just the cop there, the one that was just kind of nuts. I just felt that his character was just kind of over the top. And that was the one that really kind of I thought was weird and just a bit much. I get the point he didn't like the robots, but it just seemed a little overmuch. But I think the rest of the characters did a pretty good job, really. It's just it's just like you said. Maybe you might have convinced me to. Maybe I should give this movie a second chance. Because like you, when first time I saw Blade Runner, I actually did like it, but I thought it was just okay. And that was a movie when I went back and watched it later, I enjoyed it much more the second time. So maybe I ought to do the same with this one. Like I said, I thought it was okay. It just, would I buy it to add to my collection? Probably not. But for just a casual Saturday afternoon movie, I thought it was okay. But that's really all I got. Back to Net Control. This is KB9SOK.
you, Sean. Next up is Alan, NG5Y. Alan, your thought on characterization for this film?
Well, one thing that struck me was towards the end of the movie where the robots were taking off their vacate faces. We're not even going to try to be human anymore. We're just going to be robots. As far as the casting went, I thought that they did an excellent job on the casting. The whole deal with the Jacques Lacan querying the robots with his paperwork, I don't know why, it just struck me kind of like Doctor Who and his telepathic paper, but that's a whole story onto its own. But I really did like the characters, and like y'all been talking about, maybe you see the movie a second time and you might get a whole different take on it. Back to net, NG5Y.
Interesting. All right, next up is Jay, KB5BZW. Jay, your thoughts on characterization from KE5ICX? Jay may have fallen out, but I'll put an asterisk by his name. Let me go back up to Bill, N5BB. Bill, are you back? Your comments on characterization from KE5ICX. Right, they're falling like flies. I'll put a question mark after his name. Next I have a WT9V. I've got to check my notes and who's here and who's not. WT9V. Michael, your thoughts on characterization?
How did you get around to me this fast? Hold on, let me think. I don't know. I think probably the best characterization was what's her name, the girl robot. There was actually some character development. You could see things. I could see things changing in the way she reacted, the way she behaved, the way she thought. I don't know. Didn't really think about that much about the people, especially the evil corporate dudes. I really don't have a whole lot at this point. Sorry about that. WT9V.
All right, well, that's okay, Michael. I got some more notes here, and let's see, there was something else I wanted to put down. I'll think of it in a minute. Anyone else like to check in? This is the Afterglow Movie Net. We're talking about a movie called Automata from 2014. Robots and mankind ending and all that stuff. Not necessarily after seeing the movie, we'll just talk about that kind of science fiction film. Anybody else like to check in? Please come now. All right, no problem there. Characterization, I thought for change, the actor, in this case Antonio Banderas, I thought did a really good job. I really did. I thought his characters, Hanks, that he showed, he's usually kind of, in anything I've seen him in, and I've not seen him in everything, but he's always been kind of an over-the-top character, and we had, Sean Wallace, his buddy there, was a bit of a problem child, so he got to chew the scenery, and Banderas didn't have to do that, or Valken didn't have to do wasn't characterized that way. You can see the internal strife. He's worried about his wife. He's worried about, what's going on. And I think that, when you say people kind of were over the top, you got to remember it's, 2044, I guess, and the world is falling apart. We don't know how much it's fallen apart, but it has fallen apart precipitously. Has it happened right away? I don't know. There is the opening where they talk about, bringing the pilgrims in and save society, save everything, and then things just keep getting worse and worse. I sometimes think the way characters act in extreme situations are going to be somewhat different from one person to another. Somebody who's really cool, calm, collected may not be so when certain, things that they use as touchstones for reality get kicked out from underneath them. It's a common thing done in movies, obviously, and you expect that because you got to visualize them. You got to act them out in front of an audience so the audience can understand the feelings involved. So I don't know. I found Banderas particularly good in this role. Obviously, Melanie Griffith is Melanie Griffith, and I think she's a great actress, and she did a great job as the robot in this thing, as well as the short thing she had at the very beginning. So, Vulcan found and knew that, we had to have this slightly uplifting ending. As always happens with writing, is that you could write yourself into a corner and you got to get yourself out of that corner. And sometimes that's the hardest part, is to try and create a palatable ending to a story. And that's why I think sometimes writers go in and they write stories backwards. They have an ending that they want to achieve, which means there's character development. And we got that, but it was somewhat not as dramatic as maybe it could have been. And that's why a lot of times movies that are more middle of the road end up falling a little flat. I don't know. I felt I was entertained by the characters overall, and I didn't feel overly offended or out of place. What I call the 5-5-5-1-2-1-2 moment, where the characters become so self-aware or so outlandish that you go, no, nobody would do that. In a science fiction film, that's hard to do. I mean, unless you're Darth Vader and you say, no, in whatever number that movie is, episode 3, at the end. That's hokey. But there are other things that aren't. Ooh, I am your father. That's all pretty over the top, but it's science fiction and we gauge it that way. So I don't know. Some of the other characters are somewhat forgettable, although he had some really decent actors in there. I guess the character Robert Forster, who was the Vulcan's boss, was kind of interesting too. He was somewhat understated through the film as well. He knew that we knew things were up and that. I don't know. I'm kind of floundering on this one because really the characters were the robots and Vulcan. In fact, some of the best acting and some of the best responses were between the Banderas character and the robots. I thought those were particularly good. So I don't know. Maybe these unknown people, unseen, only heard actors doing the voicing and mannerisms, and whoever is doing the mannerisms for the robots are really the shining part of this particular film, and that's maybe why I'm focusing on that and not being able to give any, real good information about the overall characterization, because it was there. The robots had it to a certain degree. Certainly, Griffith's character was the best, I think, with Banderas, and they're up on the list anyway, so it makes sense. I'm going to stop rambling at this point. I'm going to go back to the top of the list, and we're going to talk about anything you want having to do, I don't know, with special effects, music, whatever. This may be our last round. People are kind of dropping, but this will give you extra time to talk about any and everything you want to about the film. So special effects, music, scenery, anything you want. The film's got a lot of that going on with it. So Frank is gone. Bill may be gone. Bill, N5BB, are you there? That's unusual for him. He usually checks out. Hope the radio and he are okay. Next up is Brenda, WB5OZL. Anything you want to talk about on this film, go right ahead from KE5I6.
This is WB5OZL. One thing that struck me is these robots created this cockroach, and it didn't have the robot directive to not hurt humans, because it attacked this human. Normally, under the laws of robotics, they are programmed not to hurt humans either directly or allow them to be hurt, but this one didn't have any trouble attacking humans. So you wonder what's the next step here. There are a lot of robots there in the city. They might be escaping and coming to join the little robot colony wherever they're going into the desert. And would you have a new species of robot that is, like the Borg, self-serving and has no interest in serving humans at all? So, it's an interesting thought about a sequel of, you're going to have this robot colony out there in the desert, and they'll be really different from the robots people have known. I always have such a problem with robots that look humanoid. There isn't any scientific reason to design them that way. They would topple over. I would design them with more arm. I mean, I always want another arm, or two, or another hand. It's having only two hands is very limiting when you're trying to solder or sew. So I would have designed them very differently, and also maybe with some digits that were more refined, that were thinner. These big clunky fingers that might not be good for all that much. But, that's a discussion I would like to have. If you could develop a robot, what would it look like? And I haven't seen anything in a movie yet that I thought was logical. So, anyway, I'm going to think about that for a while. Back to net, WB5OZL.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. Next up, Sean, KB5SOK. Sean, anything you want to say about the film? Anything at all? You may do so now from KE5I6.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, as far as the special effects go, I actually thought that was pretty good. I mean, I thought they did a nice job on that with the robots. They looked real. They felt like they were real. And in the scenery, I thought that part was actually well done. And as far as like comments about some of the old technology and the pagers, and in some ways that still actually made a little bit of sense to me, just because obviously if we've been bombarded with this radiation, typically it seems like the more fancy the electronics, the easier they are to damage. So the stuff that would probably survive would be the old, more basic electronics, and the older vehicles that weren't quite sophisticated would probably be most likely the ones that would still actually work after this kind of abuse. So that part did kind of make sense to me, and it was a stylistic view. So that part, I thought that was good. And yeah, as far as like Brenda's comments, that is a good comment. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to make a robot to be exactly like humans. It isn't the most efficient thing for something mechanical like that. Obviously something more efficient instead of legs would be treads, or something that could go over any terrain. So in some ways the cockroach that they made also makes sense because it had multiple legs, makes it easy for it to transverse over stuff. But it really would have no way to handle anything, so that sort of wouldn't be exactly the most best method either. No, overall, I thought the special effects were good. Back to net control. This is KB9SOK.
Thank you, Sean. You got to some of the points that I was going to make, and yeah, the technology thing was exactly what I was thinking. NG5Y, Alan, your thoughts, anything you want on the movie, special effects, music, the scenery that was done, stylistically sound, whatever you want, go ahead from KE5ICX.
Well, just finishing things out, I always think it's odd how in the future they have these holograms that are as tall as buildings. And it's like, well, what do these holograms, what's their purpose? Seems like it would be awfully distracting to traffic. I don't know. Like I said at the beginning, I really did actually enjoy this movie much more than some of the other ones. And that's all I got for the net, NG51.
All right, thank you, Alan. And next up is Jay, KG5BZW. Jay, your thoughts on anything about the film, from special effects to sound to whatever? Go ahead, from KE5ICX. I do believe he fell asleep. All right, let's see. WT9V, Michael. Michael, your thoughts on what I just said from KE5ICX.
Jay fell asleep? What? Oh, right. I thought it was the words. I thought the special effects were well done in that they weren't in your face. It just helped to tell the story as opposed to being the story. There wasn't much that I thought was... The special effects didn't knock me out of it. I think that's probably the most complimentary thing you can typically give to special effects, is that when you don't notice the special effects, that they're just there, but then you think, well, wait a minute, that can't be real. And so it was pretty good. I thought that they worked. The robots were kind of clunky, but then again, they were supposed to be clunky. Oh, and that's a thought. It's kind of a comment about what was just said about the older cars being the ones that work. I was watching a video the other day of a mechanic up in Pennsylvania trying to diagnose a problem with a 2001 pickup that wouldn't work because the throttle control body, was defective, and GM doesn't make them anymore, so you can't buy a new part for the thing. And when you mash down the accelerator, there's a little, potentiometer that tells one computer that you've mashed the accelerator down this far, and that it should open the throttle that far. And so if any of these things don't work, it ain't going nowhere. It kind of reminded me of Scotty in Star Trek 5, I think it was, maybe. The more they overthink the plumbing, the easier it is to stop up the drains. None of today's cars are going to be working in 25 years. 17IV.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I agree with you on that. And the technology thing is, the other thing is that all the Earth's inhabitants are dying, so your expertise and your memory is starting to go. And at the time the movie was made, the ozone thing was well underway anyhow. So we go flash forward to 2044, and you've lost a lot of people to the radiation. So what do you got? You're going to have stuff that, if you can't fix it, you're going to have stuff that doesn't break. And that's what you saw a lot of in the film. I absolutely agree with that. Now, there was some discussion about the holograms, which, by the way, I think was the thing that ended up being stolen, possibly from this film, for the Blade Runner, what is it, 2024, I think it is, the film. And that made sense to me that they used that. Now, the technology, what's an easy way to advertise, I don't know, sex, I guess, was one of the things they were advertising. Then to put up a hologram in a dirty town that, I don't know, probably is towering over your establishment, and it heralds a services that you can provide, that everybody can look out their windows, and since there's nothing else to look at but the grim landscape beyond, to have something better available. You also see, too, I thought the televisions of varying abilities were there, all showing nature scenes and that to try and make people feel better, from the crappy little CRT television set in the apartment to the big screen lifelike projection in whatever that was, the subway or something, wherever that is, main thoroughfare. So that made sense to me as well. Had a decent musical score. I thought, I guess some of the reviewers didn't like it. I thought it was fine. It sounded very good. I did not recognize the composer, but the music was serviceable and I thought memorable and did what it was supposed to do for the film. Let me see, anything else on this film that I can think of? Just a sec. I think that about the only thing I can say is visually it was a very, the typical dystopian thing that was played out in Blade Runner. I think it was well produced here. The lighting was interesting in that it brought out that faded, almost fluorescent look that gave it that industrial feel, or an old 1950s or 60s office building. Where everybody is pale and the light is just kind of fades everything out to give it a tired look. It's almost a cliche, but it's practically what's required in films today. So I was okay with it. I was going to mention one thing, too. I don't know what this is, but I popped it up on Internet Movie Database. There's a movie called, or television series called Automata, still on the air, started in 2017, although I don't know how that can be. There's only 5 episodes. Don't know where you'll find it, but it has to do with 1930s Prohibition-era New York City. It says here, it's not liquor that is outlawed, but the future production of highly sentient robots known as automatons. So you may want to check that out. It's Automata. It sounds like it could be the same thing, but or similar to. All right, I guess that's it for me with comments. I'm getting a little tired myself. Does anybody have any final comments that they would bring to the net before we close down, and I'll tell you what next week's movie will be. Any final comments, please come out.
In 5BB.
Hey, Bill, we lost you for a while, but you're back. Go ahead with any and every comment you want to make from KE5ICX.
This is N5BB. Well, I'm sorry I was interrupted by a phone call. A health and welfare question about one of the Irving senior club members. By the way, just to say, is there anybody here that happens to be listening that's familiar with Jim Norgren, W8EP? Has anybody on the frequency talked to him within the past week? Over. Okay, nothing heard. I didn't know if any of the Irving people happened to check into the net late. I'm sorry. I'm distracted by that, Tom. I've missed most of everything that happened since I haven't been here. I haven't been listening because I was talking to people in other states and everything. My general comments about the film was it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. And I wanted it to be better than it really was. I think it had a lot of filler in it. And if they had taken out some of that filler and put in some really quality things about what was going on with these robots and everything, I think it would have been a much better movie. But it looked pretty realistic as far as special effects and everything. And, other than that, it was a reasonable quality movie. It's just, I didn't like the screenplay. Okay, that's all I got in 5BB.
Okay, Bill. Thanks much, and thank you for checking in, everyone. I was checking to find out if my link is working here. The next scheduled movie was Stargate, the movie, and I'm not sure that the link that I put in a couple of weeks ago is actually working. I'm going to try one more thing here and see. I'm not sure. That's the tentative movie. I will post it in the Facebook and in the email. If you are, I think everybody here knows about the email, but if you don't, or if you'd like to be included, just send an email to me at my call sign, KE5ICX, Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-ray at yahoo.com. Say you would like to be added to the Afterglow movie list. I will do some further research to find out if Stargate's still available for free. If not, I will find another film. I've got a number of listed ones. One of the problems with finding movies is that they do come and go quite quickly on the free streaming services. Not that they're illegal, they aren't. They are legal with advertising, but they're very limited runs, and sometimes I reach in and they're gone or they've moved to another streaming service. So I'll see if I can track it down, and I will send it out. So I say 7-3 to everybody. Have a great rest of the weekend. Thanks for your participation tonight. It was a fun net, I thought, and we'll see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel. This is KE5ICX, and I'm clear right at the stroke of midnight.
Elvis has left the building.
Wow, Tom, that was amazing timing. Hey, I watched the thing for this week on Tubi, and I thought that worked real good. The only downside was they've got like a bunch of commercials they string. It's as bad as watching. It's as bad as watching some of the programs on cable TV with all the huge number of ads they have in there. But other than that, it was a great way of watching it. See you next week in 5BB.
W5FC.
All right, thank you, Bill. And yeah, I didn't mind it either. I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed it as well. Just old school television, when all the ads come on, you can get up, go to the bathroom, go make yourself a beverage or a sandwich or something. So it's okay. All right, catch you later. This is KE5ICX. I'm clear.
Yep, that's what I did. What you don't do is hit the stop button, because if you do, when you start it back up, the ads are going to play again before they let you watch it. So you just turn the volume down and do your thing, come back, and if you've got a little too far, you back up a little bit. Hey, it had a 10-second forward and back buttons on it, which was really good. That worked much better than some of the other things I've seen, where it's kind of hard to do that without it goofing up. Anyway, be safe, and we'll see you later. And 5BB is clear.